Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on this very special podcast. And the reason I say it is a special podcast is because it's with our very, very good friend and extremely talented Mr. Delfino.
How amazing was that, Sam? Like, he's so prolific, and we had a chance to talk about how he first started drawing, his first experiences with comic books and sequential art, and getting into some of his own properties that he created, like Klaatu Tales and Peregrine and Dances in Exile. And if you haven't read these yet, you need to go find a copy right now. And we're going to put in the show notes to visit. You can see Dances in Exile on Comic Fury, and there's links through his website, Equinox Art Studios. We didn't even get a chance to scratch the surface of all of the many other things that he does besides comic books, like murals, sculpture. The man is prolific. He's just a creator at heart.
I'm a dude who loves storytelling. I tell stories to my students, stories to my campers. But the depth to which Delfino creates his stories, as I was saying in the podcast, his creativity holds no bounds. And hopefully when you listen to this podcast, you will understand what I am talking about.
Now, I don't want to waste any more time. We got to get to this. So, ladies and gentlemen, Delfino Falciani.
Hello.
I totally meant Don start. But Delfino, you were on it, dude. I'm mixing you two up.
I know, like all day long.
Dude, I said Delfino start, meant Don, but Delfino just went right into it. Yeah. Dude, you could do this thing.
I'm here. I'm in it.
Nice.
That's why we brought you in. Delfino's always in it to win it. Am I right, dude? No matter what he does, the passion is there.
It's good.
You like the pumpkin beer?
I do like the pumpkin beer. It's very good.
Tis the season.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, basic and refreshed at the same time.
It's my favorite feeling. Yeah, dude. So, Don, you decided to bring in this gentleman by the name of Delfino into the clubhouse.
Yeah, I want to hear more about his story. I want to talk about his art. And I want to get to know him a little bit better, even though I think I know him pretty good. Men's a bits.
So.
Tell us about the dark stuff, Delfino.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. It's like I know this incredibly talented, like, ladies and gentlemen, when I say talented, I do not use that term lightly. He's also very humble, so he's in the side over here just shaking his head no. But I'm telling you yes. And we've mentioned on other episodes before. I mean, Delfino's creativity holds no bounds. But who is Delfino?
Let's dig in.
When I find out, I'll let you know.
Delfino, I'm going to ask the same question to you that I asked to Don on his. I'm very curious. When did your life in the art world begin? When's that first time that you put ink to paper or paint to paper and you thought, I'm enjoying this?
Well, it was one time when I had a friend named Vince Amoroso, and he was a good friend. We were good friends of the family and all, and we used to go over their house all the time, when we first came to America. And he was an amazing artist. And I saw him do it, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. I want to do that. So I was like, I just started emulating him. And ever since then, I've been drawing.
How old were you?
I'd say like around 7, 8.
And what was he doing that captivated you?
He was an amazing artist where he could look at something and then perfectly copy it. All right, so he had all these comic books, and he would open up to a page, and he was able to copy a figure or a panel, and he would just draw it, and I was just blown away by it. And I was like, wow, if he can do it, I don't know. I got to give it a shot.
And so, what did you start doing? Just trying to sketch your own stuff? What started you off?
Yeah, that was a. And again, it goes back to the comic books. He had all these comics around, lying around, and he would let me have some just to read and stuff, and then we trade off and stuff, and I started doing the same thing. I bought my first Spider-Man and bought my first Superman. And
Was Spider-Man your first comic ever that you bought?
I think the very first comic I ever bought was a Superman, a Superboy, and a Hulk.
Oh yeah.
Those are the first ones I think I ever bought. Yeah.
Do you still have them?
No.
That's a bummer.
No. There was a time where I had a really big stash, and my collection was growing a little bit, and then my mom got mad at me and she threw them all out.
Oh, why do moms do that?
I don't know.
I like half my friends.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
their
that
moms.
happened to my dad's comic book collection.
Did it?
Yeah, he went he went into the Navy and he came home and his whole comic book collection was
my
gone.
God.
Yeah, rough.
Yeah.
Tough thing to come back to.
Yeah.
So after that, I stashed my comics.
That's crazy, man. So, were you always into the superhero stuff? Did you ever venture out from that when it came to graphic novels?
Yeah, when I was younger, it was all superheroes, because that was the prevalent comic at the time. So yeah, it was all superheroes. But later on, I ventured out.
So when did you get into, like, I know you were into like Conan and like that, like the fantasy stuff. When did you get into that?
Again, probably like around high school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, high school. One of the first books, I was a late bloomer as far as reading goes, like regular novels and books and that kind of stuff. So I got a taste of The Hobbit and Michael Moorcock's Stormbringer. I think that was probably one of my early books that I read, and I just fell in love with the whole fantasy genre. So then Conan came right after that, and again I was introduced to Conan through the comics.
Right, through like Savage Sword.
Yeah, Savage Sword of Conan. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And, like, what do you think, out of the books that you read, the comics that you read, what do you think influenced your style as an illustrator the most?
Well, the Savage Sword of Conan stuff, that there was an inker, Alfredo Alcala, who I didn't realize it was happening at the time, but his inking style was just amazing. It was very Franklin Booth-esque, emulating Franklin Booth, and I just love the way his line work and his shading and everything else, and his graphic nature of the illustrations, and that was one of the early influences.
As a guy who just reads comics, and I love it when I see a really cool picture, and sometimes you're reading a story and then that big moment happens and it takes a full page and you're like, whoa, that looks awesome. Does someone like you read a comic in a different way? I'm enjoying the story, I am enjoying the art, but as someone like you, are you critiquing all the lines? Are you like looking at every aspect of the page and seeing how they put it together? How does someone like you read a comic as opposed to someone who's an average reader such as myself?
I read comics the same way you do. I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the art. I look at I look at the line work. But sometimes I do look at the storytelling aspect of the comic. I've read some comics where they're the pictures are beautiful, really beautifully drawn, but the sequence of panels made no sense. It was like, why is he here, and then why is he over there, and why is this happening? And it, there wasn't the continuity that like a sequential comic book would have. All the good artists, from back in the day, like Marvel and DC artists and stuff, they knew what they were doing. But you just every once in a while, you'll get somebody that it's hard to read, and and I'm sure you guys you're familiar with Frank Miller.
Sure, man, of course.
Yeah.
So he's he told a lot of his stories, just through imagery. There was very little dialogue in a lot of the books, and you got like 3 or 4 pages with no dialogue at all. And you knew what was going on, you knew what was happening, you followed the sequence of events. That's it's called sequential art.
Yeah. Was anyone else doing it like that back when Frank Miller was putting that together?
Miller was Miller. He innovated a lot of that stuff. He really kind of was in the forefront of a lot of the storytelling. As far as I do know, I heard a story one time where Stan Lee walked into one of the offices, and it was for a Conan book, and he said to the writer and the artist, he says, "Why isn't there any dialogue on this panel?" And he goes, "Well, he's not thinking, he's not saying anything," right? So for some people have to have dialogue on every panel, every page, but then the art form started evolving, and you got people like Frank Miller and Bill Sienkiewicz and all those kinds of people, and they came in and they started telling stories, just through imagery, through the drawings.
To the people who are listening who might not be familiar with these works, what would be some works that either they could check out or maybe even be familiar with?
Well, Frank Miller, everybody knows The Dark Knight Returns. Mm-hmm. He did that. He did Daredevil for many years. Bill Sienkiewicz did Moon Knight at Marvel back in the early 80s. Who else did we mention? We mentioned a couple others, but yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. And to this day, you are creating graphic novels.
Yeah, I do that on my spare time and stuff. So I'm creating. I have my own comic book that I put out. I have a web comic that I put out a page a week, and usually I'll finish a chapter, and then post a page a week, and then take a small break, and then do some more of the pages, and then post that chapter.
And are you doing everything? Are you doing the layouts of the panels, the dialogue, the art, the inking, the penciling? Are you doing everything?
Not everything. I usually do the writing and the layouts of the pages. All right, well, I do like really rough sketches, and then I often have someone that does pencils for me. This gentleman right here, Don, penciled an
You hired
issue.
this guy?
This guy right here.
Wow, it must be desperate.
He penciled an issue for me of one of my stories, and right now I'm working with a guy from, believe it or not, Cape Verde, which is an island off the coast of Africa, and he does pencils for me right now. And then after he does the pencils, I'll do the inking, the coloring, the lettering, and put it all together and then post it. But other than the pencils, I do pretty much everything. But my other book, though, the Klaatu Tales that I was doing, soup to nuts. Everything. From beginning to end.
I don't think most people realize the work that goes into a page of a comic book. Could you enlighten people the kind of thought and the kind of work that goes into just, say, a page?
Sure. Well, obviously, to me, the number one most important thing is storytelling. If you don't know what's going on the page, then it's you could have, like I said earlier, you can have as many pretty pictures as you want, but if the people can't follow the story, it's a failure to me. So I'll write a script, and then I'll break it down to individual pages, and then I'll break that down into individual panels, and then I'll start doing rough drawings, like layouts. You know, sometimes I'll put a panel here or a panel there. I'll move them around. You know, so because you also want an interest on the page. You don't want, you know, the same 6 or 9 panels every page. You know, you want a variety, so it keeps the reader interested. And then then I'll do the roughs, and then I'll hand them off to the penciler. Right. And that's just the beginning part. You know. But you also have to figure out, you know, where the dialogue goes. You know, you have to make sure you leave enough room for the dialogue. You know, every panel you have to figure out, you know, how much of a background you want in it. You know, if there's a lot of action and things going on, so you want to minimize the backgrounds.
Oh.
Okay, so you're focused more on the figures and the action that's taking place.
Oh.
And then other times, if they're, you know, just talking, people, you know, conversing and stuff, and you have different backgrounds with, and also use different angles. You know, always try to, you know, like a far shot or a close shot or close up of the eyes, or you know, different views, like a down view, or, you know, just to give it a
Almost
variety.
like a movie director.
It's almost like storyboarding.
Yeah, it very much is. Yeah, many comic book artists went into storyboarding, and, you know.
Why do you think if I mean, clearly, I'm sure a lot of people do not have the slightest clue on the thought that goes into a single page of a graphic novel. Why do you think, for so many years, maybe even to this day, to some degree, the art of graphic novelization has been so stigmatized, you know, as if it's like childish? You shouldn't read that. You need to read a real novel, just words, no pictures. Why do you think it's become so or it was so stigmatized? Maybe less so now.
Yeah,
but,
less so now. Yeah.
But I still do think that in my class, when I'm teaching elementary school students, I tell the parents, let them read comics. They're amazing. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of them think that, no, that's for kids. That's silly stuff.
I think a lot of it is like the leftover from the 50s, you know, when it was
funny papers.
Yeah, because and the what was that, the thing with the comics code?
Oh yeah, the what is that? Oh, I forget that. No, that's the Hays Code was for film, right? And then the comics code was brought about, I think, around the same time, 50s or early 60s.
Yeah,
What is that?
Around there.
It's like
well, there was a certain group of people who thought that comics were corrupting the youth, right? And there was a big trial over it and everything.
A trial?
Yeah.
Like as in like someone's being sued? What do you mean?
I don't know all those details, and I don't remember all of it. But I mean, there was hearings. Maybe trial was the wrong word. There were hearings.
Yeah, it's like, I think it's like anything else. You know, like you had like metal music being, you know, the focal point during the 80s, right. And you know, everybody's got something to.
But it's so silly. Like I don't agree with it. But it's weird, right? The metal thing. All right, yeah. They talk about the devil or whatever. But yeah, whatever. Not that I agree with that. Like, let them listen to whatever they want.
Right.
But comics are just awesome and fun and storytelling and inspirational many times. Like, and it's reading. You want your kids to read. Let them read something they actually want to read. Maybe they don't want to read, I don't know, Grapes of Wrath or whatever.
It's about people, you know, I think it's about people wanting them to read what they think is worth reading, you know? I myself and probably a whole bunch of my friends learned how to read, you know, through comics. Like, the language is far superior in comics than it is in most novels that you get. Like, to the point where even I know Marvel used to do this sometimes with like words or things that were a little obscure. You'd have a little yellow box in the corner that would give you a little explanation.
Right.
Like, how cool is that? You know, and you know, I think it's way better now than it used to be. But yeah, I see your point.
So I think a lot of that the stigma was left over from that era, and then it just it never completely went away. And then up until recently, you know, with all the Marvel movies, now everybody's into it, you know, and it's accepted more.
Do you think more people are reading that stuff because of the movies?
Sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, my wife like read all of like the Vision and Scarlet Witch movies when WandaVision came out. Like she started getting her own graphic novels and stuff to
nice.
read comic books. So yeah, it's people want to know, you know, the backstory of what's happening on their TV sets. So, you know, the people who are curious can go and find all of this like rich resource material. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So if you were going to recommend to someone who is actually, and I'm saying this because you, and we'll get into this, you are a very good storyteller. And not only are you a good storyteller, but you are a great creator of worlds and characters. And I do not say that lightly. I do not say that because you're my friend or because you're on this podcast. I'm saying that because when some people come and say, hey, can you read my work? You think to yourself, oh, God, here we go. But when Delfino comes and says, hey, check out this work, it's like, well, here we go. Let's take a ride, baby. So from a guy like you, who's such a creative creator of worlds and of characters, what would you recommend to someone who is maybe feeling the stigma of graphic novels? What would you say, hey, if you really think that way, check this out?
That's not an easy question to answer, but so a lot of my comic book reading was done, you know, back in the 70s and the 80s. Right now, I'm not reading as many comics as like the mainstream comics. I'm reading a lot more web comics, you know, which you could find online, like I'm producing. But the ones recommendation wise, I mean, you cannot go wrong with like what I said earlier, the Dark Knight Returns. That's fantastic. Frank Miller also wrote Batman Year One.
I love that one too.
Good. That was great story.
So good.
And the art was just phenomenal. What other ones?
Yeah, those are some of my
Watchmen.
favorites.
The Watchmen, yes. Right.
Watchmen blew me away.
Yeah, that was great.
That's come up on this podcast a few times.
Has it?
Yeah.
Stuff like Mouse. I mean,
yeah, I haven't read that one.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, dealing with World War II. And,
yeah, there's also some great like graphic novels. Like there's one of 1984 and Fahrenheit 451 and Slaughterhouse 5. Like yeah, there's some really cool adaptations that are popping up, and they're like thick books, like where you're really getting a good chunk of the story too.
Yeah, sometimes those classic stories, if I find out they're in graphic novel form, I will go for the graphic novel 100%.
Well, they used to have those classics illustrated comic books
I remember
that were great. It was it would basically be that in like a serialized form or a condensed version of a novel.
Are we talking about what classics are we talking about?
It's called,
you name it.
Yeah, Hunchback of Notre Dame,
Three Musketeers.
yeah.
You know, all those.
Oh, I would have had such better grades in those classes if I'd known.
Yeah, it's like Cliff Notes.
Right, a little bit. Yeah.
I mean, good stuff.
I learned all about the Beatles from
What?
From the Marvel put out a comic magazine one time, and it was like, you know, it was like the history of the Beatles kind of thing, and I was like, wow.
Yeah, I got a dramatization on Pink Floyd.
Did
That was
you?
really cool.
Oh,
I still have that somewhere
I'd love to
too.
see that.
I got one.
I'll look for that. For
I
you.
got one on Mike Tyson. I read
yeah.
recently. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
Nice.
it's so cool.
Yeah, I mean,
So you, like I was saying before, are a creator of worlds, and I love storytelling, Delfino. Like I tell stories to my students, I tell them to my campers. I can be animated, but the stories are, good guy, bad guy. There's a plot, there's a big conclusion, a lot of hoo-ha between. But man, you are creating these settings that have never been in the real world, these characters that have never been in the real world, these situations that have never been told before. Where does one get started on? How do these come to you? I would love to know the process, and I'm sure this process is way too much to explain on a 1-hour podcast. But if you could just give us a glimpse of the mind of Delfino, how does this happen? How do you get from point A to point B?
all right. So, some inspiration comes from all kinds of places. I mean, it could be a leaf that rolls out in front of you, and that reminds me of this, and then you build on that. I mean, I'm a lover of fantasy. I'm a lover of science fiction. So I try to I try to come up with stories and ideas that sometimes it's something that happened to me. Okay, for instance, I'll give you like the children's story that I've been working on, Peregrine the Aeronaut. Okay, so Peregrine is a flying turtle, that lives in this world where there's no land. It's all islands that float in the sky, kind of thing. And I was very inspired by Roger Dean from the Yes album covers and stuff. So I said, wow, I could, you can make a whole world, just from one of his paintings, So it was very, very inspirational. So what happened to me? Well, what happens in the story is, she gets separated from her mother because of the storm as they're flying to, the Great Pond. And
Something like one of these is what
exactly,
we're talking about?
Exactly, yeah.
These Yes album covers?
The Yes album covers by
Cool,
Roger Dean.
cool.
Yeah. So she gets separated from her mom, and then she has to try to figure out how to get back, to her mom, and her mom's trying to meet up with her, and she encounters all these different characters as she's trying to get home. Okay, so that happened to me. I was in Italy. We were traveling from the north and making our way down to where I live near Naples, and trains were on strike, and we were waiting in this one on this one train, and over the loudspeaker, they said, "Oh, track 6 leaving for Naples." So we gathered all our bags and stuff and ran to track 6, and then I looked down and said, "Oh my goodness, our camera bag is missing," right? And I was the oldest, I was faster, a little bigger than my brother, so I said, "I'll go get it," and I ran back to track 12, grabbed the bag. Luckily, it was still there, and by the time I got back, the train was down the tracks. So I got left in Rome, and my parents and my brother went off to Naples, and I was like, "All right, so now what do I do?" And I finally I had a couple of liras. This is how long ago it was. There were liras.
I don't even know what that is, brother. My young 41-year-old self.
Liras were the
Currency.
Yeah, the currency in Italy.
Okay, yeah.
Back in the day, before they had euros. So I got some liras together, and I had an American dollar bill in my sock. For some reason, I exchanged it, got a ticket, and but along the way I asked one guy for help, and he was helpful as much as he could. I went up to a policeman and I said, "Sir, my parents I left on the train, and I got left behind. What do I do? And he looked at me. He looked me up and down twice, and he says, "I see you got 2 good feet. You could start walking." I was like, "What?" So these different experiences, I put into the stories, that I come up with sometimes.
Are a lot of your stories based off of your own personal experiences?
No, not all of them. No. I mean that particular one was. A lot of the stories I because I like sci-fi, and and astronomy. I find something of interest in astronomy, and I'll use that in one of my stories and make that the central theme of the story.
So where does a story like Dances in Exile come from?
All right, Dances in Exile started off as the character Toriana. She started off as a D&D character. I used to play Dungeons and Dragons with this group of friends back in the day, and I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to play the same old elf or human or whatever, and I came up with an alien race, and the character in this particular story, gets left on this planet to hone their survival skills. It's part of their training. So that was the reason why my character was on that world. And then after a while, I was like, oh, wow, this is kind of cool. And then I came up with a backstory, why she was there, and that she was being hunted and chased, and so I figured, well, if so something like that, you have a premise where you have a character and she's being chased, so you can have like different bounty hunters and different characters, chasing her through, the cosmos and stuff, and different things can happen. I try to use different settings. Like one setting is on a space station, completely in space. Another is a more of a pastoral setting. Another one's in a spaceport. I try to come up with like different settings with different different ideas like that.
Do they come to you quickly? Are you sitting there for hours like, damn, what does this setting look like?
I mean, sometimes it's like, oh, wow, I got to write that down. This is a great idea. And other times it's like I'm writing and writing and writing, and then it's like, I got nothing. So, you put it down for a bit, and then the muse comes back and she sits on my shoulder for a little bit, and I frantically write down while she's there. And
yeah. So out of all the worlds you've created and all the characters, what are the ones you're most proud of? What are the ones that you look to and it's like, man, I made that and I connect with that, or I feel like people would enjoy this?
So I have a character in the same world with Peregrine. His name is Clatahulan. Okay. Oh wait, ask the question again.
So the question is like, out of all the things you've created, like, which are the ones that like, which are the ones that speak to you the most? Okay. It's like, damn, I created that one. That's badass.
So the character Clatahulan, he's It's so hard to explain.
Well, and what aspect of it makes you connect to it? Like, are you enjoying characters more that you can relate to, or are they the ones that you just think were so outside of the box? It's like, wow, I really thought of that.
No, I mean, I like I like characters that you can relate to, and not like I said, not everything happens to me that happens to characters. This particular character lost his parents and is being raised by these foster parents, and the mother is very nurturing and loving, and the father is very confrontational all the time for his own reasons and stuff. And the character tries to do the right thing, and it doesn't always work out right. But those are the kind of characters that I like. I mean, that explain that right?
Well, are you saying that because they're the ones who just go through situations in their life that the reader can relate to? You know, there's millions of people out there who can relate to, hey, there's the nurturing mom, but there's also this dad that lurks in the background that you kind of are not looking forward to coming home, and you're kind of going to your room or hiding under the chair where your mom is sitting when that guy comes on. Is that what you mean? Like, are you talking about...
Sure. I mean, so, and you know what? Now that you're saying it like that, I'm realizing that, wow, that did happen to me. You know, like, don't get me wrong, my dad was extremely loving, you know, very, but I had a stronger connection with my mom, and she was very nurturing. You know, there was always the good cop, bad cop kind of thing going on. So maybe, you know, subconsciously, I use that in my stories where, you know, my dad was, you know, he was a little stern, you know, it was like, you know, well, it has to be done like this. And my mom was more like, okay, well, you know, if as long as it gets done one way or another, you know, and it gets done right, you know, it's okay. So I think, you know, I brought, like I said, subconsciously, I brought that into the stories and didn't even realize it. Yeah.
Do you think you ever put messages in your work, something that the reader might read and either be inspired by or just connect to, or are you just writing and if that does happen, great, but if not, you know, you're just
a lot of the Clatahulan stories, they have like an environmental message. You know, there's always like, you know, this big catastrophe that's happening because people are abusing, you know, the resources of the land or whatever, and you know, Klaatu comes in and tries to fix things and helps people out, and so yeah, a lot of times it's an environmental. And I'll pick subjects, you know, that I find interesting, and you know, work a story around it like that.
Yeah.
What I want to take it back a little bit, but like, what was the first bit of sequential art that you did?
That's wow.
The best question.
Yeah, that was
asked by Don Swenson, of course. God dang it.
Sequential art. I think it was a Spider-Man thing. You know, I really loved Spider-Man when I was a kid, and you know, he was just, you know, swinging through the city, and you know, fought. I think he came against some bank robbers or something, you know, and foiled their plans.
So is it like based on another property? Was
yeah, but the first ones, yeah.
Now, like, I know this. I don't know how many other people, maybe people who've been around Hamilton for a while, but you used to have a comic strip in the Hamilton Gazette.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. It ran for 3 or 4 years. I can't remember now, but yeah, it was based on my kids. You know, it was when they were, you know, when they were really small, 8 and 5. My daughter Valkyrie and my other daughter Alexandria. The things that they would say were just amazing and hilarious, and you know, I kept seeing the world through their eyes, and they would always come up with these weird, you know, bizarre, childlike things of wonder and stuff, and I had a comic strip called Wild Cherubs that was 90% of, you know, something that they had said that week, you know, and it got into the newspaper.
So were these like comic strips where there was a punchline at the end, or was this an ongoing?
Yeah. It was like a Calvin and Hobbes kind of, you know, 3 or 4 panels and then a punchline, yeah, kind of thing, right?
I would love to see that. Is there a place where people can find that?
Go to Delfino's house.
Yeah, I've got a couple of the strips on my wall, and, you know, that I really like.
Yeah, check them out.
I would love to see these.
And believe it or not, I mean, I have all the original strips that I drew. I think all but one. But I also I cut them out of the newspaper and put them in a like a photo album. So I have them all in a book.
Oh, please, one day I would love to see these.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Have they read them as they got older?
I don't know. I don't know when's the last time they read them.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah. So current stuff, man. Like I know recently you put your heart and soul into continuing the saga that once was laid out by the great Sid Haig and his brother, working on a continuation of Land of the Lost, right?
Sid and Marty Croft.
What did I say? Sid Haig.
Yeah.
Who's Sid Haig? Oh, that's Captain Spaulding.
Yeah.
From
Yeah, I know we're close to Halloween here.
taking it back to horror like I always do.
You got the Sid part. Right?
All right, halfway
Yeah.
there. That's all you can ask of me. Yeah. So the Croft brothers. Can you tell the listeners like what you did and what we've actually
Sure.
been through over the last few months with all of that?
Okay. Yeah. Well, again a few years ago I came up with an idea. The Land of the Lost. I probably anything with the word "lost" in it had a big impact on me. Like Lost in Space, Land of the Lost, Lost Ark. Anything with that had like this adventure kind of thing. I always had a profound effect on me. But Land of the Lost was a show that I grew up with back in the 70s. And a couple years ago, I came up with an idea. It was like, well, what happened to those kids on the show? And, because back in the day, they never ended a series. They, it just ran until it got canceled.
Yeah.
Right. So I said, well, whatever happened to those kids? And so I came up with an idea where Will and Holly, it's like 15 years later, and they learned how to use the matrix table that could transport them to different places and different times and that kind of thing. And so something tragic happened in their lives, so they became kind of like the marshals of all these worlds and stuff. And that was the premise of the stories. So I wrote a treatment, did a couple of sample pages, did character designs and all that kind of stuff, and in the process of trying to pitch it to Sid and Marty Croft. Well, Marty passed away. So I did get a chance to talk to Sid's assistant.
Have you spoken to Sid, or you haven't?
Not yet.
Okay.
We're gonna get that scheduled.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's just an idea that the continuation of that story, of those characters.
Yeah. I worked hard, man. I'm glad I got you guys in touch.
You did. You were instrumental. Thank you.
Yeah, I never know what, we had this interview with Sid on the Nostalgia Cafe, and at the time my co-host Dan Morrow, rest in peace, he, we interviewed quite a few people,
Yeah.
but boy, when we interviewed Sid, the tears were flowing with Dan, and then I spoke to you about it, and I realized that this guy had such an impact on a generation of kids. It was really important to me to get you in touch with him, especially not just because I know you would love talking to the guy who made such an impact on you, but I told his secretary, like, I don't know how many people pitch ideas to you guys, but if there's someone who you should listen to, it's this man Delfino. So I don't know if anything's gonna come of it or not. But
I forget her name. I think her name was
I got it on my phone somewhere.
Kim. I don't know if it was Kim or not, but I think it was. But I had a nice long talk with her. She was so nice. She,
Kelly is her
Kelly.
name.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Kelly. Yeah. So, but what happened was that there was right now, legally, there's so many rights issues with the property, because of Universal did the movie, and there's all these toys and this and that and the other thing. So it's highly unlikely that project will happen.
I mean, the dude who put it all together and the brain of it all has none of it. Like,
Right.
like it's all gone from him.
Exactly.
Which is tragic.
Right. It is. It really is. Because the little that she told me was, Sid kind of got pushed out of the whole thing.
All over money, man.
Yeah. Ruins every.
That's the hard part about art, right? Is that you get people like you and Don who are in it for the art, and I guess every now and then the snakes in the grass come around and want to make some money off of your creativity and your art.
Yeah. I mean, that happens to a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean it. At some point, art becomes a business. Like if most successful art has to in some way have a business model built around it in order for more people to get eyes on it. And most of the time, it's the artist that's doing the creating that has the least amount of say in what happens. I mean, look at stuff like what happened to Bob Ross.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that documentary. You're talking about what you learned.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got
It's very
screwed
sad.
out of everything.
Everything. Did he die a broke man or something? Or
Pretty much, right?
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't, all of his work is owned by, Bob Ross Enterprises, which is not, it's like business partners that he had gotten into with the Joy of Painting, and they, if I'm remembering correctly, they basically contracted him out of having any rights to his stuff. It's
I think that's a big problem with. I mean, I don't know you guys well enough to know how strong you are in the business world, but I feel like all of your energy and all of your passion goes into the art itself, so that when the business aspect comes around, forgive me if I'm wrong or if this sounds insulting, but you guys might be kind of clueless. Like, that's not what interests you.
It's not insulting because it's true. It is for me anyway.
Could you move just a little closer to myself?
It's true because, you have to be both, but we focus on the creativity, we focus on the art and stuff, and every artist really needs to have some kind of manager to help them along. But sometimes you not everybody can, so you have to do it yourself, and then that takes away from from your creative time,
right? And that's a big choice who you choose to help manage. Yeah, that's really tough. Even in something something that I do, like whether it be wrestling or teaching, like I'm all in it when it comes to giving the best lesson possible and giving everyone the time of their life and really using my creativity to give the best possible show. But when it comes to all the behind the scenes stuff, like hopefully the people who are helping me out are doing the right things. You just kind of have to put your trust in them, and hopefully they're serving the product and serving you and doing what's best for everyone. But it doesn't seem like that's the case in a lot of
it's hard. I think sometimes when you put that trust in people and you're not inspecting what's actually happening, like if it's just trust is one thing. Blind trust, I think, can be damaging. It's cool if you somebody wants to manage something, that's great, but you got to make sure that there's checks and balances there. So so many celebrities like broke. Al Pacino broke.
Al Pacino's broke?
He was, at least. You know, like lots of people got swindled out of lots of money.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
but
Billy Joel.
Billy Joel's broke?
Well, he was. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Some of the greatest artists of all
yeah,
time.
to people hiring like family members to take care of their stuff, and then like their family members like steal all their money. And,
Like
it's
like
just,
Sid and Marty Croft.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it got real ugly with this.
Yeah, I mean, Sid and Marty had fallen out, and Marty really wanted to take over the business and pushed Sid out.
It's such a wild thing after decades and
Yeah.
decades of working together and
Right.
creating things that impacted millions of lives, and this is how it ends. I
Yeah.
mean,
That's sad.
it's a real
yeah, it's,
downer.
yeah.
It is.
Yeah, I guess the perfect combination is to find someone who actually cares about your well-being, cares about the product, cares about making the top dollar for whatever it's worth, but more than anything, making sure that the artist is paid for their work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know an artist, Frank Frazetta. His wife did a lot of the managing, and it was a husband and wife team, and they were together to the end. So everything they did was together, and for both of them. So it wasn't one trying to swindle anybody out. If you have a good partner, I'm not saying husband and wife all the time, but but then you never know. Something might come along, and a person changes, and
That's also true.
Yeah.
Listen, we've talked about you before on this podcast, and it's I think the opinion of Don and myself that maybe.
I got to listen to these other podcasts.
Yeah, dude. It's all we talk
You're
about
gonna
is
learn
you.
a lot about yourself. During,
But we've honestly said that you're like the top tier of like the most creative, talented people we know, and it's like, gosh, I just think it's a crime that the stuff you have created isn't out there at the forefront of every independent section of every graphic novel, comic book store, or whatever. Because I read a lot of comics. None of them are any better than you. I mean, like you create.
Appreciate that. Thank you,
dude. I mean that from the bottom of my heart, and like. I just feel like, gosh, and I'm sure if someone who's just as good as business as you are as the art were able to meet and combine, the world would be a better place because that work would be out there and for millions of eyes who would enjoy it. It's just,
maybe it'd be like artistic Voltron.
Yeah. Yeah.
yup,
That's where you were going with that, right?
exactly what I was thinking. We should name this episode that.
Artistic Voltron.
Yes.
Um,
Dude, we've got the name for you.
Excellent.
There's the T-shirt.
Yes.
No, it's one of the main reasons why like we wanted to have you on is because we're such a fan of your work, and we want other people to enjoy the stories that you tell, and we're hoping that people will check out your online webcomic, which has a few issues out right now, right? We're
Correct. Yeah, there's a couple of stories that are that are on the website. It's on a website called Comic Fury.
Mm-hmm.
That's the platform. And if you go to Comic Fury and then do a search for Dances in Exile, a couple of tiles will come up, and you could click on one of them and read the stories, and it'll take you from the beginning. You just read page by page.
Yeah, we'll include a link in the story notes.
What other work could people find of yours online? Because it's not like you just do this. You also, I mean, gosh, ladies and gentlemen, if you ever come to Hamilton and you go downtown, you'll see a big-ass mural of what Delfino created that every single time I drive by it, I can take a good look at that. I'm like, my boy made that. Or if you go to my Camp Tuscaloosa, you see a big-ass aquatic mural also made by Delfino. I mean, you just have so many talents and so many creative works out there. Besides the graphic novels, are there other things out there that people could find?
Well, I do have another mural in Atlantic City that is near the Arts Garage, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Do
The Noise Arts Garage. It's like,
is it street is Illinois? No,
I'd have to look at what that is.
It's near Bass Pro Shop. It's near there.
So it's like a block away from the Noise. It's right in the outlet stores that are over there. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Did you have more to add to that, where people can find your stuff?
There's the mural here. There's I've done some, a lot of private commissions. People's I've done some fences, in people's backyards, and some homes. I've done murals inside people's homes.
Can I ask you? I want to ask you a question, man. I hope you take this well. Okay. So there's been many times in my early wrestling career where I wasn't good at the backstage politics, but I knew that every night I went out there, my match would be in the top 2 at least, and I'd be one of the most over. Over means like, the fans were responding to me, whether I was the good guy or the bad guy. And I would think to myself, why am I not getting pushed for this championship? I wasn't good at the backstage politics. I didn't go back there and talk to the booker and kiss their ass or do whatever it was that got a lot of wrestlers who weren't as good pushes. So my question is, you seem like a very optimistic guy, and every time I see you, you seem to be in great spirits. I'm just personally curious, with the amount of talent that you have, I don't know if you see it the same way we do. Hopefully you see it. Do you ever feel bitter at all that you don't quite get out there as much as you definitely should? Do you ever think about that?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And it's completely my fault. I'm the one who doesn't promote myself enough. I've asked Don numerous occasions to, how does this Instagram thing work? And he's shown me. I do it for a couple of days, and then I don't. And it's just I don't promote myself as much as I should. I think that is the biggest number one thing that I do wrong.
In today's world, it's got to be out there,
and it has
regularly.
To be. Right, it has to be. Right. So, I mean, I do post on Facebook regularly, whenever a new page comes out, I'll post it on several pages, different groups, like art groups and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's mostly, I just don't promote. It goes back to what you were saying about not being a bad businessman,
Yeah.
Well, it's a third job.
Yeah, it really is. It's something else. And here's a proposition that I'm more than happy to make for you. If you ever set up something kind of like what Don does, where you go out and you try to promote your work and try to sell your work in, I don't know, one of these festivals or galleries or whatever it is, if you need someone to be out there to speak and to sell your work verbally and bring the people in, call me. Message me. I will do it because I love you and because I think people would love I know people would love your work. If you want to be outside on frickin' Main Street and me to be like, get your ass over here and read, I'll use good language, but get your booties over here and check out this work, I would be more than happy because people should be seeing your work. Delfino.
I appreciate that so much. That's very, very nice of you. Yeah. I'll take you up on that.
Don't be shy, dude. Reach out to me and I will be there.
I will.
I'll probably have to bring my kids in tow, but they're pretty good too.
The more the merrier.
All right. I will sell your shit. And then once they read it, the shit will sell itself. No doubt. What about the future, man? What are the hopes? What are the dreams? What are the plans?
Yeah, I'm continuing on with the Dances in Exile stories. I have so many ideas for the Clatahulan stories. There's just notebooks upon notebooks that are sitting there that I've written, and then I have to start illustrating them. And then on top of that, I keep coming up with different projects. I have another comic book idea called Time Cats, which is like a 1940s gangster, time traveling cat people kind of thing. It's out there, but
It's awesome.
But very gangster, very film noir. Look to the whole thing. What else? I had something else in my head and it slipped away. Oh, I'm doing cartography, like fantasy maps for certain fantasy books and gaming companies. What else?
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
That's a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
Has it always been like this since you were like in your 20s? Have you always had a bajillion ideas?
Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of ideas. I jot them down. They sit on a shelf for who knows how long, and then I'll one day I was like, you know what, this needs to be done now, and like the Land of the Lost stuff, that sat on the shelf for years and years, and then like when I was talking to you that you had talked to Sid, I was like, man, that I should dust that thing off and see what I could do with it, and so I took like 2.5 months and put that whole proposal together, and now I'm just waiting to talk to Sid.
Yeah. Very cool. If we have not made it clear to you people, check out Delfino's work. And dude, I really hope you take me up on just being out there and being a mouthpiece to get people to just take a peek, even at one of those Comic Cons or whatever, so I could tell, I don't know, the people who are there who managed to work the system well to get to the higher ranks, so I could tell them, like, hey, you're missing out if you're not checking out this dude. Like, I would love to sing your praises. So I hope you take me up on that, brother.
I will. I do want to mention that the Dances and Exiles stories, they're for mature readers. Right? There's sexual situations, strong language, a lot of violence in those stories. The Clatahulan stories are for a young audience, like AY, young adult.
Mm-hmm.
YA, not
E.
and the Peregrine stories are for a very, very young audience.
You're writing for everyone.
There's a gambit. There's something in there for everybody.
I told you people, his creativity holds no bounds.
So you have a website of Equinox Art Studios.
Correct.
So do you have a link to most of your properties through that?
Yes. If you go to Equinox Art Studios, there's a link to go that'll take you to the Dances in Exile stuff. It'll take you to the Peregrine stuff, and then some galleries of paintings and pen and ink, or just sketches. Murals, beescapes. I do some acrylic pours, and then paint bees within the acrylic pours, and I love doing them. I really enjoy. I haven't had a chance to do them in a while because I've got so many other irons in the fire. But every time I do one of those paintings, I sell those paintings, so they go go quick.
I think like we're coming up just over an hour now on this thing, and I feel bad we didn't even talk about what a gifted sculptor you are too. Like,
of course he is. Of course,
Sam,
he does
don't
that
be mad.
Too.
Sam,
you son of a bro.
Don't be mad.
He's a dancer too, right? It's
I worked for a company called AC Coin and Slot.
I thought you were going to say, well, I worked for a dancer for a time.
a little burlesque.
My stage name was Rosie Buttons.
How did you know? You recognize my mole?
I have that centerfold.
All right.
That's the button. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good way to end this.
Yeah,
Ladies and gentlemen, our good friend Delfino.